Hi everyone, it's Tonya Gibbs and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to share with you a mixed media tag tutorial. This is an Yvonne Blair Art Girls project. This is a glimpse of the tag that we will be creating today. I will be featuring one of Yvonne Blair's stamp sets from Impression Obsession. This is the Everyday Quotes one. As always, I will have a link to a blog post down below that has it linked up for you guys so you can easily purchase it online. So to get started with my tag, I want to prep all of my elements with gesso before I begin. This will ensure that they take my mediums really well, but it will also give everything the same overall look. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking one of the really tight Prima buds and I'm opening it up to expose the center of the bud. This will make it look like a bigger flower, and it will also expose that little ball that's on the inside so that I can paint that little styrofoam ball with some gold metallic paint later. As for the pieces that are on my desk, the flourish that you see is actually made from the Prima molds that just came out this season, and I created that with the air dry clay, and then I've just chosen some smaller rosebuds, and then the tag was actually cut from the bookplate die from Tim Holtz, and I pre-stained those with tea or coffee a long time ago, and then I've backed it onto a piece of chipboard and cut that out. And now this dress form is cut from the Tim Holtz sewing room die, and I'm painting it with the plaid pure gold metallic paint from Folk Art, and then I'm just dry brushing some of that gold metallic paint onto the high points of the flourish. I don't want to paint it completely gold, I just want to touch it with a little bit of gold. And now I'm just going to touch the edges of my tag with the same gold, and that's just going to give a nice little gilded look on the edge of my tags. Now I've decided that I really want to go ahead and paint this entire dress form. I've had a change of mind as to what I want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and paint all of the edges of this dress form gold, and then go ahead and paint the entire dress form. At this stage, I'm not sure if the dress form is going to stick out the side of the tag, because I do like things to hang off the edge of the tag, so I've decided to paint both the front and the back of the dress form. Plus it helps to use up some of that paint I have left over on my palette. I don't like for things to be messy on the back of my tag, so that's why I've decided to go ahead and paint both sides. So then I pull back the petals of my flower and I paint the center of my flower there with the gold as well. I want to be very careful with this gold because I don't want anything on my tag to have any color other than my dress form. So now it's time to add a little bit of crackle to my dress form. So I've reached for the plaid crackle medium, and I'm adding a little to a little disposable cup, and I'm going to very carefully paint the base of my dress form. I'm not going to add a whole lot to this because I'm going to cover the dress form with the dress that I have cut from a piece of scrap paper. The paper that I've chosen is a piece of scrap from Peon Designs, and I'm not sure of the paper collection because I have long since disposed of it. And then I've painted over the top of the crackle with some white paint, and now I am going to rip the dress form apart and then only add partial pieces of that back to the dress form after it has completely dried. So now I'm adding a liberal amount of the Crazing medium by Tim Holtz to the top of my dress form. And this is going to act as two things here. One, it is a matte medium that adds, I can add my paper back to my dress form. But it's also going to crackle. But instead of crackling from the top to add texture, it crackles from underneath. So the surface will be smooth, but the inside of the medium will actually crackle. So it has that nice porcelain crackled look. This is a subtle texture, but it will give the effect of broken, which is what I want for my dress. In case you haven't figured it out yet, my overall theme will be broken, which is why I want the torn pieces of the dress, and I've crackled my dress form. Now, I'm going to allow this to dry on its own, and I did not adhere my pieces of my dress down all the way. I allowed them to curl up on the edges. I'm going to also add this Crazing medium to the top of my flourish as well, so it will also continue to crackle. Again, it's very subtle, and unless you're holding this in your hand, you don't even really notice it. It's a very subtle effect, and the more of it you add, the more crackled it looks. So to continue on with my theme, I'm taking all of my paper layers, and I will use my distress tool from Tim Holtz to distress up all of the edges of all of these pieces of scrap paper. This is a de-stash project, so I just go through my stash of scraps and I pulled out everything that had the shabby chic look to it and just tried to de-stash some scraps. Instead of using up all of my expensive foam adhesive, I've decided to also de-stash some scraps of chipboard as well, and I'm using that to add the dimension to my scraps. So you'll see me layering all of these little pieces of chipboard there. I'm using paper doilies to add some softness to this, since this is going to be a very shabby chic styled tag. I didn't want to cover up the hymnal. I wanted to make sure that it was very prominent on the page and that it was still very visible even after all of the layers were placed on the tag. As I lay the layers down, instead of me explaining the process of laying those down, I wanted to go over some of my thought process for this tag. The quote that I chose says, "She made broken look beautiful and invincible." So my idea here was that everything on the tag would stay kind of bland and shabby chic, and the dress form would symbolize the broken. So she's crackled and her dress is torn. It's an armor almost, with the way that it's put back together. She has this chest piece that has been placed on almost like a chest of armor. It's put on and it's crinkled and it's torn, but it's put back on, and it's and I love how it rolls back up at the top, and then down at the bottom it's rolled back down again, and then when you look at it, it's crackled from the crazing that has been added to it, and then down at the bottom of the dress form again, it's crackled and the paint is peeling from all of the technique that's been added to it. And then after it was placed down, she's the only thing on this tag with any color added to it. Everything else is very bland, so she's the most prominent, so she's made it look invincible and beautiful. So what I wanted to do is, by adding the hymnal page and making it very prominent on this page, it shows that when she's broken, you know, she goes to Jesus and he gives her back her strength to make her invincible. So that's sort of the symbolic meaning that I have here for this tag. So I wanted it to remain a very prominent placement on this page. That no matter how many layers there are to her, and no matter how many things that are thrown at her, or no matter how many pieces that make her come together or tear her apart, or no matter how many pieces and parts of complexities that are added to her life, as long as there's God in her life, and as long as she's built around that structure, she will always be beautiful and invincible, because she is grounded in His Word. So I'm going to add the flourish here at the base of my girl, and it's just going to kind of anchor her there on the page. And then I'm going to start building out my flower arrangement around that, starting with my big flower on the bottom right. Now I'm adding a little hot glue to hold these in place, but I'm also adding a very liberal amount of matte medium. These clay pieces are quite heavy, so the matte medium is not going to hold right away, and the hot glue will keep it in place until it has time to set. Then I'm going to continue to add a few more of these smaller flowers up in the flourish, just to give it balance and to finish building it out and hide some of these corners to these paper layers. and then adding in some of these flat pearls into some of these corners where I've ripped some of this paper as well. And I've gone into my little bucket of wonders here on my desk. As you can see, it's quite a mess. When I do these tags, I do like to use up a lot of scraps, and I'm looking for elements that are white or off-white to add, because like I said before, I only want my dress form to have color. Everything else will have that kind of off-white or white look to it to maintain the shabby chic look of this tag. These are some itty bitty flowers that I have in my stash, and I'm robbing it of all of its white. And I'm poking in some little pearl-like flowers. I'm looking for texture in this as well, so I'm also pulling out some of this Maya Road trim that is white that has been stained a little with some, I think it was with the antique linen tea dye or antique linen Tim Holtz ink that you see there on my desk. So I'm just poking that down with a little toothpick to get it into that negative area. And to make everything kind of come together, I'm going to just dry brush a little bit of that gesso over the top. And again, I'm gessoing over my hymnal page. You can still see the words on the hymnal page, but I don't want anything to take away from this dress form. I want the dress form to be prominent and the most apparent thing on the page. So I'm even kind of dry brushing over the top of the tag, the little tag, the big tag, all of it. I just want the dress form to really pop and come forward on this tag. Now I've reached for some of the glimmer mist, and this is the Dazzling Diamond Glimmer Mist, and it's just a clear with a pearlescent white shimmer, so it gives it a really nice sparkle all over the dress form, or all over the whole tag. And I've set a large eyelet from We Are Memory Keepers in the top, and now I'm just going to set some seam binding in the top that I've also kind of crinkled up with a little bit of that Dazzling Diamond Glimmer Mist, and we're just about done here. I'm also going to make a little bow out of some wheat twine. It's just a little figure eight, simple little figure eight bow. And that bow is going to go right there on the smaller tag on the left. And then the tag is just about complete now. It's time to add our sentiment to this. So I've just taken a little tag that I've created with little fishtail banners, and I am going to take my sentiment, and using some Versa ink, I've stamped it there on my little label. And now I am going to, I've used a little powder bag that's made from EK Success it's called a Stamping Buddy, ran it across the top of my label, and then I've stamped my image with the Versa ink. And now I am going to add my gold embossing powder from Ranger. I think this is the Queen's Gold, but you can use the Princess Gold. I think is the substitute for that. They no longer make the Queen's Gold. It's a really beautiful gold. It's rich gold. Heat and set that, and now I am going to use the tiny attacher from Tim Holtz to staple that right to the top of my tag. And then later I went back and added a little bit of gold to the top of that staple so it matches my theme a little better. So here are the close-ups of my tag. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today through this long process video. I hope you've enjoyed this production and you like my tag. Don't forget to go check out that blog post that I've placed the link to down below in the description box. It will have these close-up photos for you guys so you can really see the detail of this beautiful tag. And don't forget to check out the other stamps in this set also on that blog post. If you've enjoyed this production, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and share it with a friend.